The TarAmps Smart3 Amplifier does not come with the bass knob. So my RCA is going to be in the trunk, and I need a cable long enough to reach the front seat where I'm going to be sitting so I can be able to control what this amplifier is doing. It's kind of a headache, to be honest with you, but if you want it done properly, this is the way you do it. Well, folks, this is my first TarAmps product here on the channel. And as you guys can see, this is coming straight from Amazon. And as you guys can tell, when I get this packaging open, this thing comes with absolutely no packing material. That is a big no-no for anything electronics. You want your electronics to be packaged pretty tightly so that you can ensure that this thing won't come already faulty. Let's jump right off into this. The Smart3 amplifier has hit the scene within the last year or two, and it's pretty much made waves everywhere I've seen it. I was intrigued by this amplifier after watching quite a few YouTube videos. Fellow YouTubers talk about the power output of this thing and pretty much how they have incorporated some technology in here to actually be able to give the amplifiers max power at both 1 and 2 ohms. Pretty cool stuff if you ask me. I've never heard of an amplifier that can do that. Not saying that there wasn't or isn't one already in existence, but being able to test different subwoofers at different frequencies and not having to wire them every single time to a specific ohm load is pretty genius and convenient for me as a tester. So when I heard about this technology, I definitely wanted to get one on the bench and see exactly what it could do. The best applications for the Smart3 seems to be subwoofers, woofers, compression drivers, and tweeters. They did not mention the super tweeter, even though at 3,000 watts, I'm guessing this thing probably could push one of those as well. But as you guys can see right here, it is not recommended for super tweeters. Here's some technical information for it. This is a Class D amplifier. Once again, it does have consistent output at 1 and 2 ohms. And get this is at 12.6 volts. Pretty cool, especially given that most automobiles is operating at 13 and above. So we have the bass boost frequency here from 35, in between 35 hertz and 55 hertz. You can give it a 10 dB boost. Please know what you're doing before you do that. Check your gains always when using bass boost. But having a variable frequency like that is really the way to use bass boost, instead of, you know, those just simple plain knobs where you don't know what frequency that it is boosting. It actually has an input impedance of 10,000 ohms. It has a protection system as well. It has an output short circuit, high-low voltage protection, and thermal. Very, very good stuff inside of this guy here. The minimum supply voltage for this amplifier is 9 volts, and the maximum supply voltage is 16 volts. That's good as well. Some systems do run at 16 volts. And here it is. Also look at this, consumption at rest. So this thing would actually just be sitting there doing nothing basically and still consuming 2.5 amperes there. So keep that in mind as well, especially for you guys who don't have battery separator units inside of your vehicles. And here you go, a maximum consumption signal, they say, is at 300 amps. So I'm guessing that you guys probably want to fuse your systems based upon this value right here. Maximum music consumption is 150 amps. So you have your dimensions right here in case you guys want to fit that. And it says here that it's around 5.7 pounds, which is about the same that I got from it. If you are enjoying this video and would like to learn a little bit more about how to simplify car audio, please consider clicking that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Alright guys, so right now we over here in the lab, and as you guys can see, I am disconnecting a current amplifier that I have up here. This is an older Power Acoustic Razor series. This is the weakest one they have, actually, the 1500D. It's only about a 300 watt amplifier, just to be honest with you, but it served me well. It was a pretty reliable one. It still works perfectly fine, but not enough power to test the subwoofers that I'm bringing into the lab these days. So that's the reason for me going out and getting the Smart 3. It was going to be my new lab setup. But anyway, I wanted you guys to kind of see what's going on here. And as you guys can see, there's a 2-pound difference in between these two amplifiers, one being 10 times more powerful than the other one. Technology has come such a long way. Just think about it. That amplifier only required an 8-gauge wire. The Smart 3 actually requires 1-out power terminals. And as you guys can see with this oversized 4-gauge from New Concepts Colossus Flex cable, it has no problem going into those terminals at all. So if you guys have a 1-aught cable, this is what is required from an amplifier such as this. The Smart 3 does not come with a remote bass knob, which is a downer, but what it does come with is a pretty nice little remote monitoring system here. This is a clip detector, a power detector, and a protect indicator right here in one. This thing connects to the phone style jacks over on the amplifier, and it has about a 20-foot cord to enable it to reach the front of your vehicle. This is pretty handy to have, especially you guys are doing any like burp applications or something like that, or you're just demoing your system for your friends. Having an indicator like this is a plus, but I still would rather have seen a remote bass knob. All right, guys, so in order to make this work, you're going to need 4 things, all right? You're going to need a male-to-male cable. You're going to need a male-to-female cable. You're also going to need a Y splitter. The splitter is going to have to be the male split with 2 female ends. And of course, you're going to need your bass, your RCA, level control, okay? Those are the 4 things you're going to need for this. And I'm going to show you guys how to hook this up. Now, in my case, my RCA, I have existing RCAs in the rear of my car, and I'll explain that in a minute. All right, so the example that I'm going to give you guys now is going to be different. It can be different in 2 ways. Your existing RCAs can be coming out of your head deck, so that means that your pre-existing RCA can be up front in the front of the car. But in my case, my pre-existing RCAs is already in the trunk with this amplifier, and I have to give it a level control because this thing doesn't come with one. Okay, it doesn't operate like that, so I have to control it through the RCAs. In order to do that, you're just gonna have to put this in the line that's going from the sound source, which in your case may be the head deck, and being routed to the amplifier. You have to put this in that connection. So meaning that, look at this as just being one straight piece of wire. Okay, so instead of this being one RCA going from the head deck to the amplifier, you're gonna intersect that and put this in the middle of that. And this is gonna control the voltage level, hence controlling the level control, the output control. All right, so the way we're gonna do that, we have to take the pre-existing RCA, whether that be from your head deck or in my case, from the factory amplifier, coming from in my trunk, I have a level control already there, okay? So my RCA is gonna be in the trunk. And I need a cable long enough to reach the front seat where I'm going to be sitting so I can be able to control what this amplifier is doing. It's kind of a headache, to be honest with you, but if you want it done properly, this is the way you do it. So you take the pre-existing connections, which is this right here, and you're going to connect this to these two female ends here, because I have to reach the front seat. Okay, so I connect them as such, like this. Okay, then I have to route this with this 20-foot cable. I think this is a 10-foot cable. I have to route this thing to my front seat. So my front seat is here. This is where this is going to be at. So I take these two and I put this into the input section of the level control. So this goes into the input section like this, very simple. Now it's just like one long cable. These ends right here have to go back to the trunk, because remember I'm in the front seat now. So I have another 10-foot cable that is going to reach back to the trunk, correct? So I have to connect these two, female to male. This is very simple. And that's going to connect to the output level. So now this thing is actually in line with my RCA cable. So this, remember, one thing to remember about this amplifier is that it only has a single input for RCA for sound. It has one single input, which is why I had to go and get this splitter. You see that? 2 into 1. These two connections into one. This is going to go into the amplifier, but not before I complete the line by taking these two. Now that signal is here, and this is what you put into the amplifier. Okay? Just like that. So you guys see my pre-existing connection from my factory amplifier. It could be from your head unit, wherever your pre-existing connections is, whatever your sound source is. I still stop saying pre-existing connect. Wherever your sound source is, connect them RCAs here, run it here, put this in the middle, and from the input, output back to the amp. That's all you're doing. You're just completing the loop. You're putting him in the loop. Like I said, kind of a headache, but if you're going to get one of these Smart 3 amplifiers, this is what you're going to have to do. All right, to give you guys a demo of how this thing actually works, what I'm going to be doing first is turning this thing all the way down. I don't want to blow my little Toro 8-inch subwoofer over here with a 3,000 watt amplifier. So what I'm going to be doing is give you guys I'm going to be running a 40 hertz test on through WinISD. You can do that with this right here. You hit generate, it'll do it. But first I got to get everything powered up. This is my trigger. This is my switch right here, little toggle switch. This here implements a car ignition. So you turn this on, and it has a remote turn on for the amplifier. And there you go. You got the on, the clip in, the protect. And I'm blue right now, so that's what you want to see. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to adjust my volume a little bit, put it on about, not that high. Put it on about 40 or so. I'm going to say 35. Put it on about 35 or so. And then just generate this test tone right quick. It's going to give you a volume warning. And now it's playing through my satellite speakers right now. I'm going to get a little bit more volume. Put it on about 45. And as you guys can see, the subwoofer isn't doing anything because of this. Now if I turn this up a little bit, let's give it a little juice. Turn it about halfway. Now you can see that the subwoofer is actually being activated, and I haven't set the gains. I have not set the gains on this yet. So I can actually take it all the way right now and it's not doing anything. So that's good. It's just barely moving. It's barely doing anything. And from there I can go ahead and mess around with the oscilloscope a little bit and get the gains going. But just for the sake of this video, I know you guys want to see the cone move a little bit, so I'm going to mess around with the gain. I'm going to turn the gain up a little bit on it. And the TarAmp actually has a little indicator right there on board, which is pretty cool. And now I see that it's moving. So let's get this turned up a little bit more. See that? Just a little bit. And look here. As you adjust the gain, the level control here, the TarAmp, I actually got a meter right here on board. Watch this. You turn it up, it goes up. Turn it up, it goes up. Pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. But I'm gonna stop it for now. And I wonder how much power that little guy was just taking. He was pushing them pretty good. That's what this guy here is going to tell us in the next video. All right, guys, so what we need to be doing right here is setting gains, okay? Before you do any testing, you want to make sure that you test 3 different locations at least. You want to test, for one, whatever your sound signal is first coming from, whether that be your cell phone or the head deck itself. When I say head deck, I'm talking your car stereo. So you want to take that RCA cable from your car stereo and you want to test the signal coming from that head deck, so that way you'll be able to know what your voltage output is from your head unit. You're going to take that and then you're going to run that to whatever next in line of that signal that you have, whether that be a DSP, a low pass converter, or whatever the case may be. You want to test voltage going into every component, coming out of and going into every component. And that is pretty much what I'm doing right here. As you guys can see, I do have a DSP there on the table, but that DSP is not being used in this test right here. What is going to be used is the head deck, and it's going to be directly running to that amplifier. So that's what I'm going to be testing. Later on, I want to give you guys a demo, but know that I did measure voltage drop from the head deck through the through the remote bass knob to the amplifier. So all that has been tested, and I'm going to give you guys a demo coming right up. Today we're going to be testing with the Scar IDO ZVX8. This is a 8-inch SPL subwoofer, and I'm going to be housing it in a transmission line enclosure that I built for it. This transmission line enclosure is tuned to 44 to 45 hertz. That is around the FS of this subwoofer. If you would like to learn a little bit more about how to tune your T-line enclosures, I do have a T-line formula video on my channel, so look in the descriptions below for that. I'm going to be setting this guy up, and we're going to be seeing exactly how much power we can get from it. The subwoofer is wired up to 4 ohms. All right, so here's a look at the bench, the final setup before testing right here. As stated once before, we're going to be sending the signal through the head deck. This head deck is a very old one. It can be any head deck, to be honest with you. In this case, this is the DEH150. We're going to be sending signal to that head deck through the Samsung Galaxy A10 tablet. It can be anything. It can be Bluetooth if it had it. Of course, the amplifier in question is going to be the Smart3 from TarAmps. And as you guys can see, we do have a consistent voltage of about 14.4, and that is being ran or powered by the PowerMax PM3120. This gives a maximum of about 120 amps for our power delivery system. And we're going to be measuring things with the SMD AMM1 tool, just to see how much impedance rise will affect the output of this setup right here. So right now we're gonna start out, like I told you guys, this thing is wired up to 4 ohms. Impedance rise is gonna more than double in this demonstration right here. As you guys can see, it's sitting at 9.3 already. And I'm just gonna slowly increase the gains here. It increased all the way up until 11 ohms. And as you can see, the TarAmps is maxed out. And that's pretty much what we're getting out of it right now. I don't have it turned up 100%, but it is moving a whole lot of air. You don't want to really max this thing out. That's why I left it at 4 ohms, because this is a transmission line, and the transmission line doesn't have a lot of back pressure, and you can easily damage the subwoofer. Essentially, it's running free air when it's inside of enclosures such as this, which is not even an enclosure. That's why it's called a line. It's literally like putting the subwoofer in a pipe or tube. So we're just gonna get it up a little bit at rest. Now it's at 6 ohms. And we're gonna increase it a little bit and see just what it'll do at about 450 watts or so. I won't give it any more than that. And we have an impedance rise of around 11.75 ohms. And just for reference, the TarAmps is actually rated at 2,000 watts at 4 ohms, but of course this thing is given an impedance rise of 3 times that. You're not going to get 2,000 watts out of it at that high of an impedance. I did later on test this amplifier in the vehicle because I was curious about what its output would be in relation to the dual setup that I have in my trunk currently. And to be honest with you, this amplifier performed amazingly well. Okay, it gave pretty much the same power that the audio pipes that I got in my trunk now put out, and I was really amazed by it. What I did not like was the same effect that the impedance rise had on the amplifiers that's currently in there. It of course suffered from the same impedance rise, because impedance rise is more so have to do with your environment and your enclosure design with the subwoofers that you have in that environment. So all those things affect it. So I was looking at the fact that this amplifier actually puts out pretty much the same power that I already had. So I was kind of on the fence about even keeping this amplifier. And at the end of the day, I kind of decided not to keep this amplifier. I need more power to combat this impedance rise, so I will not be keeping the Smart 3. So that is my third reason for not keeping the Smart 3 amplifier. Not that it's a bad amplifier. This is an amazing technology that they have incorporated within this amplifier, but it just doesn't meet the power requirements that I need at this time. So I'm gonna not be keeping it, and instead I'm gonna be going with another TarAmp product, since they are the best bang for the buck these days, and I'm gonna be going with an 8K setup instead. So that should be enough to combat the impedance rise that I am getting in my system and give me some decent output to boot. So I'm going to be getting an MD 8000.1, and I'm going to be putting that guy in the trunk instead. So stay tuned, guys, if you want to see a bit more on that and get some more updates on that. All products featured in this video will be listed in the descriptions below. And until next time, as always, thanks for visiting the channel to help you simplify car audio. It's the Budget Basshead, and I'm out.